What's up, guys? It's another college football Saturday. My college football video is up, 4 plays in there. Still like all those. I think the numbers, for the most part, are probably still around. A couple other games I can mention briefly that, I forgot to mention Utah USC. That's another one of the big games this week. It looks like the line has gone up on USC from 5 to 7, and it looks like they have more money than tickets. 80% of the cash, 70% of the tickets. So it looks like there is money driving the number up on USC. So it seems like the professional guys, there is some respected money there on USC. I don't know exactly if I would agree with it necessarily because USC was rolling along, had that undefeated season, and then came crashing down with a really kind of ugly loss at Notre Dame, where they somehow allowed Notre Dame to put up 48 on them. This USC defense is really not good. Really not good. And I wouldn't say it's a dream crusher or anything like that because USC, I mean, they could still win the Pac 12. They're still undefeated, tied with Washington in the Pac 12. Undefeated in conference, I should say. But they have that one loss. Now, sometimes when you have that one big loss, it does hang you over into the next game. But because they're facing Utah, it's like, well, are they really going to have a hangover effect when they're facing Utah? One of the ranked team, one of the other best teams in the conference, probably not. But Utah kind of bounced back in their previous game with a win over Cal after I think they had suffered a loss prior to that, a tough loss to Oregon State maybe. But they came back and were able to bounce back. So that tells me that team has some resolve. So I don't know if I agree with the money on this. The situation slightly tells me that Utah is possibly the side there, but the money is definitely saying that there is professional money on USC, and that's probably more of like a numbers thing where the power ratings guys are saying that they have USC ranked a bit higher than what they appear, and it is the type of game where you have two like ranked teams with really good records, and recreational bettors might come in and just like think that there's value in taking the points, taking the underdog, and thinking it's going to be like a competitive game. So there is that aspect of it too. So that one's a little bit hard to read. The Toledo-Miami, Ohio game, I just noticed, that's a big game in the MAC. Those are like two of the top teams in the MAC conference. It's big for a MAC game, all right? They are the MAC daddies right now of the conference. Miami, Ohio, surprisingly good this year. Toledo, a bigger name in the conference, maybe. They've been more of the class of the conference more consistently recently, I guess. But that number, it looks like there's 77% of the tickets, but only 55% of the cash on Miami, Ohio. And it looks like the line is flipped from Toledo +1 to -1.5. So it looks like there's reverse line movement there on Toledo, driving them up, flipping them to a favorite against where the ticket percentage and cash percentages. So that's kind of a strong indicator. So I think that's kind of the betting market. The professional guys seem to be telling you that they like Toledo there. They think Toledo is the better team. Well, the numbers telling you Toledo's the better team because they're favored on the road. But I think they're saying that they should be more heavily favored than what they are potentially. So it looks like, there's movement there in Toledo. The West Virginia-Oklahoma State situation is interesting because that's a game where it looks like the market has slightly ticked down on West Virginia from -3, juiced at -115, down to -3, only juiced at 104, so headed possibly below 3 with 54% of the money on Oklahoma State, but 53% of the tickets on West Virginia. But I don't really agree with what I'm seeing with the market there. There are situational angles that would put me on West Virginia more so. Oklahoma State's coming off a big win, kind of. They are coming off a win over Kansas, who was ranked at the time, so that's still kind of a big win, especially when Oklahoma State's had some struggles this year. They're able to get that pretty good win, so they might have a little bit of a hangover effect here. These Big 12 teams also tends to not be that great a situation when they have to go to West Virginia. It's kind of a weird geographical situation, although they're more used to it now since West Virginia's been in the Big 12 for a while. But I still think that's one of the tougher like travel spots that the Big 12 teams have to endure, having to go out to West Virginia. West Virginia has extra time off as well because they haven't played since last Thursday. they had the Thursday night game, and they had that close game where they wound up losing to Houston in the end, which is kind of a brutal loss to take. So they might be in like a bounce back situation, have that extra couple days to prepare there. So West Virginia, I would lean that way in that one. And then you got some of the other teams. There are a few teams that I wanted to go against last week, but they were all on byes because they had big games the previous week. That would be Oklahoma and Texas because they played in the Red River rivalry, but then they both got byes last week. But I would still look to go. I wouldn't want to be on either of them this week. And it looks like the line has gone down on Oklahoma from somewhere in the 19 range down to 17. It looks like there's some of the betting market is going against them and taking Central Florida. And Central Florida hasn't looked good. They've had some games where they were getting some of the respected money, and they basically didn't even show up, like in that game against Kansas. So the recreational guys are definitely not really going to want anything to do with UCF at this point, but I don't think it's a great spot for Oklahoma. They went into a bye after that big upset win in that huge game over Texas, and then they have that extra week to think about it. In a case like that, I don't think the extra week really helps you. I think it kind of hurts you because it kind of stops that momentum a little bit. Although maybe it like lets you like prepare or like gather your thoughts more, so you're not like coming off that huge win and having to play again right away. But I don't know, you could be spending the whole week like kind of celebrating and basking in the goodness of that win as well. So I don't know, I don't like Oklahoma there. I would only lean to UCF plus the huge amount of points there. Texas is also some huge favorite. I don't even know who they're playing today, but they have some big number. Yeah, where are they at? Yeah, they're playing Houston, actually. They're a 23.5-point road favorite. No thanks. Even though SMU, as I mentioned yesterday in my video, they were a gigantic road favorite, but Temple is just so awful that it was no sweat for SMU in that one. Just terrible game to have as the only college football primetime game. Hey, look how awesome college football is, guys. Here's our lone primetime game on a Friday night for you guys. Well, you guys probably won't be watching it anyway. You're all partying on a Friday night. But here's your 55-0 SMU victory over one of the worst teams in FBS college football, Temple. Yeah, great game in that one. But yeah, Texas, I would not want to lay 23.5 on the road with Texas. Coming off that Red River rivalry loss in this case, although they had a bye to kind of regather themselves. But and Houston is a bit down, so they do get maybe more name recognition than they deserve, and they are coming off that win that I mentioned over West Virginia, which is a decent win. I mean, it's a Big 12 win for a team that just joined the Big 12, so maybe a big win, kind of. Houston played on that Thursday, so they have a couple extra days off over the Saturday, but Texas, of course, has the entire week off. Yeah, I don't know. I would not want to be on Texas there. And then the other team that I wanted to look to go against last week was Georgia Tech after the way that they beat Miami, which everybody knows famously Miami literally could have just kneeled and won the game. And for some reason, Mario Cristobal decided, no, let's run the football, fumble it over, and then give Georgia Tech another possession for absolutely no reason, and then allow Georgia Tech to win the game, which I think was on a touchdown as well. I think they gave up a touchdown. Dude, Mario Cristobal, I don't know how he continues to keep his job. His Miami teams continue to just make horrendous mistakes, completely underperform what their talent level is or should be. Absolutely ridiculous. But that was a big time upset for Georgia Tech, even though the way that they won was just really embarrassing for both teams, but especially for Miami, obviously. But Georgia Tech then had a bye after that, so I don't know if that would help them regather themselves, because I was going to look to go against them off of that ridiculous win. I still wouldn't really want any part of Georgia Tech here today. They're a 6-point home favorite up against BC. And I was going to say, well, Georgia Tech doesn't run the triple option anymore because BC, I think, in their last game beat a triple option team in Army. I think that was their last game. I don't know if that was 2 weeks ago for BC at this point. So BC might even be coming to this also off of a bye. I don't even know. But I don't want anything to do with Georgia Tech coming off that ridiculous win over Miami, that upset. But those are my thoughts on all of those. my actual strong plays, you can go look at my college football video. Of course, I think the market kind of backs up those numbers, those plays there. Even Wake Forest looks like it's kind of shifted around a little bit, even though they're a public team, unfortunately. But it looks like they do have slightly more money than tickets there. Looking at the NHL card, there are a couple of somewhat interesting games here. Well, and I'm actually going to have a play on one of them, but maybe I'll save that until the end of the video. You have Toronto, Tampa Bay, which is a rematch of the playoff series from last year. And Toronto has actually gone up from -120 to -135 on the road and have 61% of the cash, over 58% of the tickets. So it looks like there is money on Toronto, and that is a series where I believe it's playoff revenge for Tampa Bay, though, because I think Toronto knocked them out and then wound up losing to the Florida Panthers in the playoffs last year. So that's interesting, where I think you remember the team that knocked you out of the playoffs, at least. So I think there is some motivation on the Tampa Bay side. The situation, I didn't really see that much that indicates strongly on either team, that like the situational angles that I look for. I do think Tampa is actually returning home from a road trip, though, so that might be why there is some money going against them here. Oh yeah, that is why, actually. So, or no, they returned home already and they played Vancouver, so they have won. So they have one game under their belt already since returning home from Canada and Buffalo. So Detroit, Ottawa, and Buffalo. So I don't know. That's an interesting matchup, so I just mentioned it. It looks like the money is driving the number up on Toronto, but Tampa does have that playoff revenge motivational factor there that I think, if it's going to be a factor at all in the NHL, I think it is in a situation where you're facing the team for the first time that eliminated you a few months ago from the playoffs. So that's what's going on there. And I don't know what else we have. I don't know if there are any indicators. So, yeah, the situational angles, I don't see much in that Toronto-Tampa Bay game otherwise, and I don't see that much in Washington-Montreal either, but I can tell you that there is 61% of the cash, but 57% of the tickets on Washington. So, like with Toronto, there's more. It's very similar percentages, actually. More of the money than the tickets on the road favorite here, as Washington is now also a favorite here. So, it looks like there is action driving the price up on those two teams, on Toronto and Washington. With Washington, it's interesting because the favorite is flipped. So Washington was a plus 107 dog at Montreal. Now they're a minus 115 favorite. And I think both of these teams are kind of teams that have like names that carry a little bit of weight in the NHL, but they're teams that I think are both down this year for sure. Like, neither of these teams I think are really supposed to be that good. They haven't played well yet. I think Washington's played more games than Montreal and hasn't looked good, but the favorite is flipped and there is money. Looks like more money than tickets on Washington, so that is an indicator. It looks like some of the more respected bettors do like Washington, like the Caps in that one at the Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't know about that. I will have an actual play that I'm making in NHL in 1 second. But first, I'll talk about baseball, even though I don't want to rehash it because I keep losing my bets. And yesterday, it was the Philadelphia Phillies who were the culprit in another brutal way. It felt like at the end of the regular season, I was just losing MLB bets brutally, where they were just ripped away from me in the final innings just multiple times in a row. It looked like I had the win in the bag, and it just gets completely taken away from me. And that's what happened yesterday, too. I wasn't watching it, fortunately, but the Phillies, they were losing early on in the game. They were losing 2-0, and then they tied it 2-2. So I liked the starting pitching matchup, if you saw my video yesterday. I liked Sanchez a lot more than Mantiply. And I was right about Mantiply not going deep into the game, and Arizona, intending on using a committee yesterday, which they did. They only used him for an inning. What I didn't expect was that Sanchez would kind of have the same fate and be taken out of the game early. And I don't think he was doing that badly, but they took him out early, in the second inning, maybe second or third inning, and he hadn't thrown that many pitches. I don't know if he got hurt. I wasn't watching it. I don't know what was up with that, but that would suck for me as well. But if I had played the first 5 inning wager, at least with those the starting pitching matchup, because I weighed the starting pitching matchup in pretty heavily, I would have at least pushed because Philadelphia tied the game at 2, I believe, at the end of or in the top of the 5th inning. So by the end of the 5th, they tied it. So that would have pushed. But then what happened was Philadelphia wound up taking the lead. I think they actually took a 5-2 lead, and maybe, I forget. And then it was 5-3 going into the bottom of the 8th. And what do you have? You 5-3 in the 8th inning. You're in a pretty decent spot to try to close out that game, even though you're against an Arizona team who's in total desperation mode, because I think if Arizona lost that game, they would be in huge trouble. Down 3-1, of course, would have been the case if that happened, I believe. I think it's a 2-2 series now because they won. So they would have been down 3-1 and facing a situation where even if they win at home, they have to go back to Philly for 2 more. So they would be basically dead at that point. They pulled out all the stops, and Philly used Kimbrel for the 2nd straight game. Their closer, probably they shouldn't have done that, and he completely blew the game, and Arizona scored 3 times in the bottom of the 8th, destroying my bet, and I laid like a favorite price on Philly, minus 129. I think it had gone up by game time into the 130s at least, so I think I got a better number than where it closed at. Just brutal. Had the 5-3 lead. I didn't like the fact that they're public, but had the 5-3 lead, and then you just get wiped out and you just lose the game just like that right at the end there. Kimbrel can't save the game. This is bad. And now I don't know if Kimbrel's going to be available in this game. And in today's game, you got Zach Wheeler against Zach Gallen. Zach versus Zach. Zach with a K versus Zach with no K. And this is a game where Philly is kind of sitting at minus 130 on the money line, but they have 85% of the tickets and 96% of the cash. I don't know if I would weigh that like seeming cash discrepancy very heavily there, because Philly's definitely a public road favorite here. I don't know. And with the way that they imploded yesterday and the fact that they probably don't have Kimbrel available today, I don't know if I would like Philly in like the late game situations in a game like this. I don't know if I would trust them here, and the fact that they're like a public road favorite as well. I don't know if I would trust any of that. But Arizona, now they won 2 games like back to back dramatically. They had the walk-off. I think I said it was a walk-off home run by Marte in the previous game, but I think it was a walk-off single, a walk-off hit. I think he might have had a home run earlier in the game. I don't even know. Whatever it was a walk-off win in the 9th. And then they have another dramatic win in the next game, come from behind with a 3-run bottom of the 8th, and then they were able to close it out and keep Philly scoreless in the top of the 9th to close out the game and win it. So 2 dramatic wins in a row for Arizona. You have to figure with them how much do they have left in the tank. So there are situations, going against both of these teams here. Oh boy, yeah. And both teams used a lot of their relievers yesterday. Their starters both were out of the game very early on in the game yesterday. So the bullpen situations are not good either. So even though it was a high-scoring game yesterday, and you have 2 of the better pitchers on these pitching staffs pitching today, I don't know if I would want anything to do with an under in this game either, because once you get later into the game, those bullpens are just not in a good situation to keep that game lower scoring. So I don't know if I would have any. I don't know if I would want anything to do with the total in this game either. Really, it looks like with the total, there is 68% of the cash on the over, even though there's 70% of the tickets on the under. So it does look like there is a discrepancy there with some betting on the over, even though it looks like it's ticked down actually from under 8 minus 115 to under 8 minus 117. But the under just seems way too dangerous to me there, and it looks like there is that discrepancy pointing towards the over there. I would probably look slightly to the over, but yeah, I don't really have much of a feeling on any of this, on anything to do with this game, really. This is just a mess. I'm just commenting on it because it's a big playoff game, and it's the only MLB game today. Zach Gallen pitching for Arizona. He's got a 1.12 whip on the season, 3.47 ERA, really good stats on the season, but 264 opponent batting average against the Phillies hitters. So they've been able to hit him decently at least. And he did not do well the other time he pitched in this series. He suffered a loss. He got knocked around. He put a lot of guys on base. He pitched 5 innings, gave up 8 hits, 2 walks, 3 home runs, and 5 earned runs. Not good. Really not good. Not good stats in that one. So the Phillies were definitely able to get to him and knock him around in that win for the Phillies there. So I don't know if you might say that maybe he'll be able to bounce back a little bit because he is coming off a bad outing. But I don't know. He's kind of struggled to put up good strikeout numbers in the playoffs so far this year, and he's walked too many guys. He has a 12-7 strikeout walk ratio. That's not good. And he's allowed 9 earned runs in 16 1/3 innings, also not good. So he's struggled in the postseason. Zach Wheeler for the Phillies, he's one of their best pitchers, 3.61 ERA in the season, 1.08 whip, a really good whip on the season. His stats against Arizona slightly better than Gallen's are against the Phillies, 252 OBA and 111 career at-bats against the Diamondbacks. Wheeler also pitched in that 5-3 win over Arizona earlier in this series, and he fared significantly better. 8 strikeouts, no walks, only 3 hits, 2 earned runs in 6 innings, and he gave up a home run. So without that home run, his stats might have looked even more dominant. Because without that home run, he only allowed 2 other hits, and he probably wouldn't have allowed. He obviously wouldn't have allowed the 2 earned runs because one of those came on the home run. So at least one of them did. So he had a really good performance in that one. So I don't know if you want to, if you might say that might mean that he might regress a little bit in the next game, or if he just is focused right now and he is the better of the 2 pitchers here. I would trust him more than I would trust Gallen here, but like I said, I don't really trust the market. I trust the market. I don't trust Philly based on what I'm seeing in the market. I would not want to lay the road favorite again. I liked it yesterday. I don't like it as much here today. I think there are a lot of factors that are going against each other in this game, so those are my feelings there. I don't know what to think about it, to be honest. Just, it's all a wash, the side and the total to me. Don't know. And we'll get to my actual play, which is in the NHL. Going back to the NHL here. Maybe I should have saved the NHL for last, but I like the fact that I'll talk about that big baseball game kind of last year. What am I doing in the NHL? Well, there were a couple games in the NHL yesterday, and one of those teams is playing today. So I think it's a bad situation for the New York Islanders. They had a fairly big game against the Devils. Devils were a playoff team last year. Big game, and the game went into overtime. I don't know if it was a shootout as well, but it went into overtime. It was a hard-fought game. It was a game where I had said that I kind of leaned to the under in that one because the teams had so much time off, but it went into overtime, so it wound up going over even in regulation. So I was wrong about that, but it was a competitive game. It was 4-4, and the Islanders wound up losing, not quite being able to pull it out in the end, and losing 5-4 in a tough game to the Devils. And now they have to turn around on the road, even though it's a short trip, right away, and they have to face Buffalo. And Buffalo's had a day off, so that it's a tough situation, in my opinion, for the Islanders to have to do that. Buffalo's the rested team. They're a favorite at home, though, so you have to lay the favorite price. But it looks like it's gone down in the market from -130 to -123, so I don't know what's going on with that. It looks like there is movement against what I'm talking about here in Buffalo, but it does look like there's 79% of the tickets and 97% of the cash on Buffalo, so it looks like there is more. It looks like there's a discrepancy there with more of the cash than the tickets on Buffalo. I don't know what to think about what I'm seeing in the market there. I'm reading the situation for the most part here. And, yeah, the market is kind of giving me conflicting signals, which happens a lot in hockey, so I don't like that. But I'll go with the situation here. The Islanders are on a back-to-back, the second of a back-to-back, and coming off a big game and a tough loss that went into overtime. So that's a tough situation for the Islanders to have to turn around right away and do it again. So I laid 120 with Buffalo, actually, and I think you can still get numbers like that out there. Minus 120, Buffalo Sabres. Go check out the college football video if you haven't. It's starting in 45 minutes or so. Hopefully, this is a long-ass video. Hopefully, the video will get up before the noon slate. Peace.